Hey guys, it's Joey. I finally was able to sit down and record my Snyder Cut review. I recorded one a couple days ago, but I just got a new mic, hadn't figured it out, audio's messed up. Anyway, did not work. So I decided to sit down and do it again, probably for a good reason, because that last video I did was about 40 minutes of me just blabbering on about Snyder Cut. But now I've collected my thoughts. It's been a couple days. I could just tell you guys my thoughts and not just, babble and just brain dump on you. Finally got to see Snyder Cut the other night. Watched all 4 hours in one sitting. I figured if I stop and start again, if I stop, I'm not going to start again. So I decided I'm just going to do it one sitting, go through the Snyder Cut, see how I feel. And then we'll go from there. So this is going to be, I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. I'm going to talk about the things I like, the things I didn't like, and then my conclusion. There's going to be spoilers. This is usually how a review works, obviously. Those of you who have visited my channel before know I do like these DC Extended Universe movies. I did like Batman v Superman. I like Aquaman, Wonder Woman. I even liked Wonder Woman 84 to an extent. Shazam, I really liked. I actually did like Birds of Prey. Also, I thought that was a lot of fun, and that was like one of the last movies I saw before quarantine started. And I've watched it a couple times since, honestly. I really did like that movie. But let's get into Snyder Cut, because there's a lot of things to cover, very little time, so let's just get into it. All right, to start, a couple things. Obviously 4 hours long, a lot to chew. I'm glad they broke it up into parts, made it a lot more digestible, like chapters in a book, obviously. What I liked the most, I think, is what everybody kind of has been taking away from the Snyder Cut, is we just got to spend more time with these characters. We got to figure out why they did certain things and things that we didn't see in the Whedon version. And they were very plastic and kind of just caricatures in the Whedon version. Not to say that there could be more done with these characters. They could have been fleshed out more in this movie. Obviously, even 4 hours, there's just a lot to unpack. And these are characters we do know to an extent. We've seen at least Wonder Woman and Aquaman and more than just Batman vs Superman and Justice League. We've seen standalone. We kind of know who they are. Batman, we know he's Batman. He's Batman. Superman, we've only really seen Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel. We got obviously a lot more in Man of Steel, and the Flash is really the Flash and Cyborg are really the ones that we know the least about. But through this version of the Snyder Cut, we get to learn a lot more, at least about Cyborg. We get to learn a little bit more about Barry and his relationship with his father and his relationship with the Speed Force. We know he knows about it. We know he's in touch with it. So that was cool, because we didn't really get that in the Whedon version, in the original version. So we know Barry's been kind of around the block a little while. Obviously, he's not much of a fighter. He uses very very basic maneuvers to try to get things over on people. He uses the speed to try to, he could just touch people and like put them in other places and stuff like that and push people out of the way. Obviously, it's his big move, and use all that kinetic energy and just push them out of the way. But with Cyborg, we got more of the emotional journey, because the Cyborg we've gotten to know, if you don't really read the comics or read the Cyborg comics, the first Cyborg I really ever knew was the one in Teen Titans, the animated series, the original animated series that came out probably over a decade ago. I'm sure it's over a decade ago now. And that was kind of my first real understanding of or experience with Cyborg. So it was cool to see him on the big screen. Cool to see him in the way Zack Snyder originally wanted it to portray Cyborg and the story he wanted to tell with Cyborg. Obviously, him and Ray Fisher are fairly close, and they had to be to get kind of that emotional, whatever that they needed for this version of the story. Obviously, we did not get that in the Whedon cut, and there's there's a lot of issues with Whedon and Fisher obviously going around. I'm not going to touch too much on that. Maybe in another video. You feel a lot more of the love for the characters and for the story. Obviously, Whedon was not going to share the same passion that Snyder did for his own vision and what he saw and wrote out for these characters. So I feel like we got a lot of that. We got a lot more of that picture when it came to Zack Snyder's full vision for these characters. That's all you really wanted. I mean, the story didn't change too much. We still fought Steppenwolf, whose armor looks fantastic, by the way, and he had these big, like, bubbly eyes. You almost felt you felt for Steppenwolf at one point. He just wanted to go home. So that was, I didn't know how to feel about that, honestly. He didn't look as, I think he looked more evil in the Whedon version. He looked like more definitive, oh, this is a bad guy, but he was a little bit of a puppy dog in the Snyder cut, which I was not expecting. I didn't dislike it, but I just was not expecting him to have those eyes. There's a lot I liked. I thought the action was okay. I liked more of the Wonder Woman action. I always like seeing Gal Gadot. Her action sequence, the bank sequence was cool. It was a little different from the Whedon version, and just the fight sequence in general. The Flash, with Iris, that slow-mo, he was applying for the puppy or the animal daycare, whatever it was, store. And that whole slow-mo sequence with Iris and the hot dog, and that was beautiful. That was hilarious. That was exactly what I would want for a Flash kind of Snyder-esque thing. It landed for me. So there's a lot of fun things. Obviously, it had a lot of the dark, muted Snyder stuff, which I'm okay with. It's very stylistic. It's very Snyder. We've seen that in most of his movies, just like the muted, desaturated colors and stuff like that. That doesn't bother me. I don't need my movies to be shiny and bright. I like color, but this is a specific. You're sitting down for a Zack Snyder movie. You kind of know what you're gonna get in terms of color grading and all that stuff. So that stuff, I dig it. It looks a little different from the other stuff we're getting. And you either like that, that's more of a subjective thing, as film is in general. So I really, I did like a lot of what I saw. If we want to jump over, because I'm trying to do this kind of quickly, so I'm not rambling about things. Some things I didn't like is, obviously, even 4 hours, I feel like we did not spend enough time. I feel like we didn't have a necessarily small ensemble. It was fairly decent sized, but I feel like we could have done more. I wanted to see more with Superman. The Lois Lane stuff was a little odd, especially because it turned out that Clark's mom turned out to be Martian Manhunter. John Jones showed up to kind of talk Lois into being alive again. Those interactions were, while they were emotional, they were a little odd to me. I love anything Amy Adams does. I'm a big fan of Amy Adams. I like her as Lois. It felt weird. It felt like her story wasn't totally there. It wasn't totally intuitive with the overall story. Obviously, she's grieving for Clark, and we needed to see that sort of consequence from BVS, but I don't know. For some reason, it didn't do it for me. I didn't feel like she was. I know it was a couple years later, but I didn't feel a lot of the grief from her. She kind of seemed, I don't know, just kind of stoic and kind of just go with the flow and go with the motions and stuff like that, which I totally get. But I wanted to see more from Amy Adams. I feel like we didn't get enough. We got those very few emotional moments of grief and stuff, but I feel like we could have seen more and really felt that impact that that loss had, instead of her kind of being sad at her desk kind of thing, or bringing the coffee to the memorial. I don't know, that stuff didn't do it for me. I feel like you have Amy Adams, she's good at that kind of thing. You should put her, really put her to work. But it's a small gripe. The fight with Steppenwolf, and I did not like this scene in the original cut either, and it's in both. The fight with Steppenwolf and when he has all the prisoners in that facility, for whatever reason, I just don't like that scene. I wish that scene had not transferred over, or they did something else with it. The scene where, the water comes flooding through the tunnel at the end of the fight. For whatever reason, I'm just not a fan of that scene. It doesn't do it for me. Every time that scene came up, and during my rewatches and even during the Snyder Cut, I just kind of wanted to go forward. It just did not interest me at all. It's just not for me. Whenever that scene comes up, I'm like, all right, well, I guess we have to sit through this now. Other than it being 4 hours, there were a lot of things I did genuinely like about the movie. I didn't have too many, my nitpicky things is I know they could have done with more time and fleshed things out, but it was already 4 hours. So maybe I'll discuss that in a bigger video. We're already going on like 10-ish minutes here. So final thoughts. I like Snyder Cut. You probably could tell by the way I'm talking about it that I liked it. I don't know if I'll rewatch it because it is such a time commitment to sit down and watch the Snyder Cut, but I thought it was great being able to see Zack's vision kind of come through. I don't think they're going to do more in his world. The other movies are doing fairly well, kind of just playing off of what he started, which I think is cool. I think getting a bunch of other people to play around with these characters is fun, and we get to see different ideas and perspectives. And obviously Aquaman did very well on his own. That's like one of the biggest DC movies of all time. It's sad to kind of see the end of the Snyder verse now that it came back when it was able to kind of end things on his terms. It kind of leaves the movie open-ended. You kind of get a feeling of what happens in these other worlds. It even set up the Ben Affleck Batman movie, so like they could still do those things if they want to at some point. I don't know if Ben Affleck is ever going to come back for Batman, although it looked like that scene at the end was a newer clip because he's a lot thinner. He's a lot less, that bulky Batman that we see during most of the movie. But I really wanted to see that Ben Affleck Batman, and I like that he included those things as he would have if he had finished the movie, and include those kind of cliffhangers, if you will, for the movies that were supposed to come afterward, like the Ben Affleck movie, like Justice League 2, or maybe Darkseid does get the formula. There's so much potential. You get to see more of Jared Leto's Joker, and he had that kind of blood curdle laugh in his throat. I can't even do it because it's like he's choking on some kind of fluid. It's so gross, but it's so great. And that whole thing was to redeem Jared Leto's Joker so he could show up in other places, which I think he will. I think Jared Leto, again, a lot of people had another opportunity to kind of show off what they can do, or even reimagine the characters a little bit. The Joker we saw in Suicide Squad definitely was very different from the Joker we saw here. Maybe. This Joker had lost a lot more than that Joker in Suicide Squad, so that was interesting. Obviously, Harley is gone in the nightmare sequence, which is sad because that means Margot Robbie's gone and probably wouldn't be in that movie, which would be very unfortunate if that was the case, unless Batman was lying, which is a total possibility. Anyway, I could just ramble on about this and go into theories, which I totally want to do. And if you want to see a theories video, or you want to have a bigger conversation, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you liked Snyder Cut, if you didn't like Snyder Cut, and why. Let me know what your theories are about where this could have gone if they did decide to continue this. What were your thoughts about what would happen in the nightmare version of the world? And if you like this video, subscribe to the channel. I do DC reviews for all the movies that come out. I do discussions and stuff like that. So if you like that stuff, subscribe to the channel, and I hope everybody has a good week, and I shall talk to you very soon. See ya.